Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Keely, and today we're going to be talking about the root of my overeating. I'm not going to be blaming anyone. I'm just going to tell my story. So I'm going to do a little disclaimer. If you have any issues, if you're easily triggered, I highly suggest you don't watch this video. Why don't you watch my other ones? They're actually pretty good, I think, for being brand new to YouTube. So I'm giving you space and time to log out of this and go watch something else. All right, so let's get started. So I have an overeating problem. It's all emotional, and it's my fault. I put the food in my mouth, and I know better. And you know what? Recently, I'm doing better. I'm choosing to do better. But I thought I would share my story into what led to me going to food for comfort. I grew up in a great house with my parents, a great home, but there were things that happened outside of our family that were out of our control, and all of us were doing the best that we could at the time, and it is what it is. So let me just explain. So I'm a daughter of a gentleman who was in law enforcement. So my dad worked in law enforcement for several years, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom. When I was very young, around the age of 4 and 5, we lived in a town, and I went to a little private school and was happy. I have a younger brother, and we all were happy. And then my parents decided to better our situation and move to a nicer area that had better schools. They wanted my brother and I to have a better education so we could get to the colleges of our choices and go from there. So we moved. And we ended up in this great little neighborhood. Well, at the time, we ended up in this neighborhood, and at first everything was fine, but then stuff hit the fan kind of right away. We had in our neighborhood there was this really wealthy family whose teenage kids were just wild and out of control. Parents were just checked out. They were drinking, doing gosh knows what. And they let their kids run around and do terrible things. So anyway, when they found out a police officer family was moving in the neighborhood, they really weren't thrilled about that. So the teenagers, the sons, kind of like went out of their way to not welcome us. I'll just put it that way. And they had a sister my age. And at first I was so excited about having a possible friend, and she chummed up with me and we were great. But then once we got to my school, which was a public school, so that was different. I was going through culture shock between going from a private school to a public school, and it was just a huge culture shock. So she started to bully me amongst everybody else. So I had everyone kind of picking on me, and I didn't know anyone. And I didn't have anywhere to turn. And on top of it, there was a lot of violence going on. The Rodney King stuff was happening around this time. So I had a lot of people come to me as a kid around this time. Like I'm gonna, for like the next few years, single me out because they figured out who my father was and what he did for a job. And a lot of adults, a lot of parents would tell me how much they hated me and how much they hated my father and what he did, and we were scum. And I'm saying this a lot nicer than what they said. So anyway, imagine being a kid from the age of like 8 to 15. I'm gonna do a broad range because this happened for several years, but really a lot of it happened when I was younger. And parents were just adults were coming out of the woodwork, just telling me how much they hated me and they hated who we stood for, what my dad did. And as a kid, it was really confusing because I was like, what the heck are you talking about? I don't know you. You don't know my dad. And again, a lot of what was going on in the news at the time, a lot of violence, a lot of riots. It was not good. So we have that going on. And then in our neighborhood, we had wild and crazy teenagers, and they were involved in drugs and various things, and they knew when my dad would go to work, and at the time my dad would be working like swing and graveyard shifts, so they would attack my mom and I. Well, my brother was little, so he was in his room, but they would vandalize our home and like kick our door, like yelling and screaming about breaking in. They used to threaten my mom that they would get me and rape me, or that they would rape her. So at a very young age, I knew what it was like to be hated. And it was really confusing because I didn't know these people. I didn't even know what the word rape meant, but I knew it was not good. And there was a lot of things going on at work for my dad. So I was dealing with all of that. Then there was a lot of things going on with my mom. And so it was just really crazy. All of us were doing our own thing, dealing with this stress. And that's when I started to turn to food for comfort, because I couldn't go to my dad because I knew he was stressed out. I'm not blaming my dad about this. I'm just letting you know. My dad was busy trying to put food on the table and keep his mind on his business when he was at work to keep himself safe and do what he needed to do to keep others safe. My mom was busy being worried about my dad. And then there were some other things going on with my mom. Hindsight's 2020, but it was the beginning of some issues going on with my mom, and she really wasn't talking about it. So she's got her own issues, and then I have mine. I'm getting like bullied like crazy at my school. I have no friends. I mean, I had people that I was acquaintances with, but I had like no friends. We were going to church, but the church really wasn't kind. And my grandmother, God love her, I love my grandmother, but she was not a person to go to when stuff was happening. So I was alone trying to figure this out, being like 8, 9, 10, 11, having people come up to me, tell me they hate me, they want to rape me, they want to beat the crap out of me, they want to rape my mother, like they want my dad to die. And I'm just like, what is going on? So to deal with all these heavy emotions and not burden my parents with one more thing, me and my issues, I turned to food. So I used to sneak cookies and candies and ice cream and all that kind of stuff. And of course I left a trail, and my parents confronted me, and it was an ongoing thing. But like I said, at a young age, I knew what it was like to be singled out and not treated very well. And it was just very confusing and not being able to talk about it. So I internalized a lot, clearly. So I went inwards. I'm a natural introvert, but I really went inwards. My happy place, everything was inside. That's all I could go, is retreat inside to deal with what was going on. Like I said, there was stuff going on with my dad. There was stuff going on with my mom. There was stuff going on with my grandma. And there was stuff going on with me. And I didn't want to burden anyone. And we were all doing the best that we could at the time. And, you know, I feel bad about it all, because now being a mother, I feel terrible, you know, being a mother, just to think if one of my kids didn't feel like they could come to me to talk to me about something. But also at the same time, I get it. Because if you see your mom stressing out about stuff, you don't want her to worry more. So there's that. So years went on. My dad would talk about how he felt bad about how people would single my brother and I out once people figured out who he was and what he did for a living, and how to handle it. So it got a little bit better, kind of like water rolling off a duck's back eventually. But as a kid, it was just really hard and confusing because I didn't have anyone to talk to. So I just went to food for that sugar high, because it's real. Like the high that sugar gives you is a complete rush. And I don't mean like energetic, woo, you know, I mean kind of like what cocaine does to people. I mean, I've never done cocaine, but I've heard it kind of has the same thing, where it just gives you that high and you feel blissful, and then of course you come crashing down. Anyway, so it was just like a vicious cycle. I would eat, and then I'd feel guilty about eating, and I'd eat because I felt guilty about it. As you know, vicious cycle. And things happened when I was a teenager, more things dealing with adults not doing the right thing and attacking my family. That was really difficult. I think that was more difficult to deal with those situations than it was when I was younger, because I felt helpless, because I was old enough to stand up for myself, and I did. Like, I even left one of my favorite jobs because of certain circumstances, because I just couldn't handle it. I stood up to the adult who wasn't doing the right thing, and I gave them my peace of mind, and I left. And I'm glad I did that. But it was just really disappointing as a young person, seeing people struggle, but then also have people attack you and then choose not to do the right thing when they know better. And that was just really confusing as a kid. So now I'm an adult. So those coping mechanisms, unfortunately, were ingrained, and I kept going through them because, like I said, as I went through my teens, I was bullied quite a lot. I was always the odd duck. Like, I was always friendly, and people were friendly to me, like my peers, and I would go from one clique to the other, but I never really fully fit in. But I was friendly with people, and people were friendly with me. And so, but there was just no one I could talk to. I internalized everything, and then went to college. I kind of got in my own, and I got to be myself for the most part, but I was dealing with my own stressors because I was a college athlete, and that was stressful, and I was dealing with other things, and again, no one to talk to. So it was just all in my head, all in here, and then trying to fix things on my own, and I didn't know how to fix it. So now, fast forward several years later, like 20 odd years later, I'm an adult, and I'm holding myself accountable. I know food is not the answer, and now I'm doing something about it. It's hard to break these patterns of behavior, but I have to do it because it's not fair to me or to my family. Like, I don't want to look like this. I mean, I don't want to feel this way, and I don't want to have this unhealthy relationship and pass that to my kids. Like, I don't want them to see it. Like, I don't want them to live it. So I'm holding myself accountable, and that's why I'm making these videos, because hopefully my truth will either inspire someone or let someone know that they're not alone. Because we're all going through our ish. I like to swear. I'm a pirate. I love to swear. I have a potty mouth, but on this channel, I'll do my very best to make up my own swear words, and hopefully you can follow along into what I'm trying to say. But we all have our own ish to deal with, and a lot of us are going through the same thing. Like, if we just took a moment and talked to each other, or just listened, if we freaking just listened, we'd realize that we're all so much alike. We're all struggling. We're all lonely. We're all these things. And if only we would just connect with each other. So that's my way. This is my way of connecting with, I don't know, someone. I'm hoping maybe if someone watches this video, maybe we'll connect. Maybe you'll hear what I'm saying and be like, that's me. I feel like that. Or, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So yes, I was not molested, nothing horrible like that. And I'm sorry if that has happened to you. I'm really freaking sorry about that. My story is more of the violence that had happened towards me. I've had people try to break down our front door as a child. They tried to burn our house down while I was home alone inside, and they knew I was in there. I had people try to run me off the road when I'd be driving. I've had just extreme acts of violence like that happen, and hatred, and it just boggles the mind how people think that's okay to do to anyone, let alone a kid. A freaking kid. A kid from the age of like 8 to 18. Like, I had a whole bunch of gunk happen between then, and it was all kind of like the same thing. So it makes me upset that it happened, but at the same time, being older, I know holding that anger inside clearly is not working, and it's not healthy, that I need to let it go and believe that God, karma, whatever is going to come back for those people. Like, I won't be around for it, or I haven't been around for it, but all those people who did the horrible things to me and my family, karma's going to bite you in the butt, or if it hasn't done so already. And like I said, I don't need to punish myself anymore. I don't need to withdraw and go within anymore. And I can speak my truth. And speaking my truth, I'm hoping will help me let go so I can get better and become the person who I want to be. She's in here. I know she is. She wants to come out. I know I sound kind of weird talking about myself in third person, but my whole entire life, I've experienced these things and held them in to try to keep others safe and not make them feel uncomfortable or guilty or anything like that. Like I said, I'm not blaming my parents. This is not their fault. They did everything that they could at the time to deal with stuff. There was a lot of things I didn't tell my parents, so they didn't know, and that's not the things that they didn't know are not their fault. You know what I mean? So that is why I have an overeating problem. Is I internalized everything and I didn't want to burden other people. But I can't be doing that anymore, and I don't want to do it anymore, and I'm not. I'm talking. I'm speaking my truth, even if it's just to nothingness. If this video is never watched, that's fine, but I have to let it out. Let it out to the universe and just let you know I'm done. I'm not holding this in anymore. I'm letting it go. I'm letting it go. All that hate, I want it out. I don't need it manifesting in my body anymore. I don't hate myself. I know the things that had happened as a kid were not my fault. I didn't bring those on. Those were adults who made horrible decisions and were horrible people. That has no reflection on me. It's a reflection of them and what was going on in their head. And clearly they were unhappy individuals. So, thanks for watching. I know it was a little heavy, a little rushed. But if you have any questions, or if you want me to go more into depth about something, I'll be happy to do so. So if you could like, comment, and please subscribe, I would love that, because I'm on this journey and I'm documenting it. Whatever comes up, bubbles up to the surface. If I think it might be helpful to someone, I'm going to record it and see what happens. So with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you soon. Bye.